Here's my 2003 Shinsen Miata. It's an NB2 generation with a VVTi motor. I'm starting to get a little bit of breakup on acceleration, and my idle isn't perfectly balanced. So I've troubleshooted a few different things, and I've read that these Miatas, because they have a wasted spark ignition, where basically every engine cycle it's sparking, even when it's not required, that it goes through these NGK spark plug cables and spark plugs pretty quickly. So decided to try to install the Fab9 ignition coil conversion kit. Should burn a lot harder, a hotter spark, and I expect it to fix the idle issue and break up on acceleration. If it does not, I might have a vacuum leak somewhere. That's something I'll still need to investigate, or it could be a bad fuel filter, but I'm hoping this solves the problem. First thing you got to do is disconnect the negative side of your battery. All right, with the battery disconnected, you're going to disconnect this 10mm here, 10mm here, right here, and right here. That's 4 in total. To make this easier, this was hooked in here. I took it out to gain more access to these 10mm bolts. You can do the same thing right here. All right, now with those 10mm bolts removed, I can start to remove these pieces. There you go. These just pull up. You can disconnect the harness. There you go. Okay, now all 4 are disconnected. All right, with those harnesses moved out of the way, I had to tuck them underneath the bar over here. We're gonna reuse this connector and this connector with the Fab9 tuning kit. So next I'm gonna try to remove those. Well, one of them has a broken tab, but you just push down on this tab and pull it out. This one has a broken tab, so I'm gonna try to remove that off camera in a second here. All right, this is what the NGK factory parts look like. This is the Fab9 kit with the ignition coils and the new harness. These two are gonna plug in the same spot that the other harnesses previously plugged into, over here and here. These other 4 are gonna plug right into the ignition coils. So next step is to remove the spark plugs. All right, to change the spark plugs on your Miata, you're going to use a 5/8 spark plug socket. It has a little rubber grommet in there to hold on to the spark plug so you could take it out. I took out the first spark plug already, so I can compare it to the new spark plug. And you can see the 2 right here. So the one I'm taking out is the Iridium BKR5EIX11, and I'm putting in this Brisk spark plug DR17YS provided with the Fab9 kit. The difference here is that the instructions say to remove this tip right here. So I am simply going to unscrew it. And there you go. That removes the tip from there. And that's the new plug I'm going to put back inside. One more thing you're going to want to check is the gap in your spark plugs. So the instructions say that it works in most cases. You don't need to gap. In some cases, depending on your application, you might need to gap the plugs a little bit, but you got to be careful because that one, I don't think it'll focus, but that piece right there is very fragile, right in the middle. So you got to be careful when you're gapping these plugs. I'm going to remove the remaining 3 plugs. There we go. It's the next one. See, it's a little dirty there. Again, going to take the tip off of this, just unscrew it. Just like that, without that tip. Put that in place. And I'm going to repeat with the next 2 plugs back there. As you're tightening these plugs, pay attention to the torque numbers on the back. So as you're tightening your spark plugs, tighten to 18.5 foot-pounds or 25 Newton meters. I don't have a torque wrench, so there you go. That feels like 18.5 pounds, good enough for me. All right, new plugs are installed. Next step is to insert the coil packs and then that harness over there. Now the instructions are not clear on the direction of these, but all of the photos I saw online of these systems installed, the connector is pointing towards the front of the car. So I'm going to do the same thing. So with that, push that down. Just making sure they're tight. That one's a little bit wobbly. Just a little wobbly. But they do have an O-ring inside, if you saw the O-ring before I put them in. And that helps keep them in place and sealed. All right, with the coil packs inserted in the engine, I'm now going to take this harness underneath here. I'm going to assume that the longest piece plugs into number 1. The second longest into number 2. Difficult to do with one hand, so I'm going to put my phone down to plug these last 2 in. All right, the last step is where it gets a little bit tricky, which is plugging in these harnesses, right? You don't want to plug the wrong one in the wrong spot. So I had to go back to the instructions to figure out right over here, coil 1 and 4 versus coil 2 and 3. So coil 1 and 4 are the outside wires here, which are green and white. And if you follow that, here's the green one, versus the inside is yellow and brown, and the middle one is ground. So the inside is coil 2 and 3 with the brown wire here for coil 2 and 3. I had to rewind in my video to realize that the one that's closer to the firewall is for coil 1 and 4, and the one that's further away from the firewall, closer to the front of the car, is for coil 2 and 3. Next step is to secure this. The instructions recommend securing it to the firewall. I'm guessing somewhere down there. So I'm going to clean this up and try to figure out where I want to wire tie it And where do I want to secure it? There are existing holes in the firewall right there, though they're not the right size or location. So that's going to be the final step, is connecting that and then starting up the car. Or you can start the car first to test it out, which is what I will do after I zip tie and clean this up a little bit. Okay, the install is mostly finished now. I still gotta secure that part to the firewall, but for now I just added a small wire tie right there and tucked everything in here, and this is looped around the booster over there. Eventually I'd like to mount it right here, figure out if I can make it fit in this space, but I will need to tap that out or maybe get a nut to secure it on the inside of this cowl here. So I'm going to connect the battery and start the car. All right, time to connect the battery. Tighten that up. All right, let's see if I did everything correctly or if the car is about to blow up. Okay, took a second to start up, but everything looks good. I'm gonna let it warm up, see if it idles, and then take it for a test drive. It's warmed up now, idling smoothly. See right there. No issues. Now I'm going to go for a drive. So far so good on the drive. Does feel like I gained half a horsepower, so that's pretty good. So I decided against mounting the electronics on the right side because of how hot it gets with the exhaust manifold. So I moved everything to the other side on the intake manifold, and I ended up 3D printing a bracket that snaps into the booster lines and used zip ties on top of that, and now the device is not moving at all and it's firmly in place.